I'm just gonna sit quiet.
All right, hi everyone, and welcome to Leveling Up. Tonight I am going to teach how to do an SCA cool Roman hoodie. Whoops, there we go. Now I know what I'm doing. My sister Ashaxi is joining me tonight so that she can ask questions in real time, and she'll be monitoring the feed so that she can ask your questions. So I think I'll start with a share screen so that you guys can see what the hoodie is based on. It's actually based on a historical example, but we aren't going to do it historically because the Roman tunics were basically woven in one piece, and they were a big long rectangle with these little sleeves. So basically you're wearing a sack, and nobody looks good in a sack. And my sister enlightened me a couple of years ago that if I'm gonna, make clothes and take the time, I should feel good in them. So I like to make clothes I feel attractive in. So what you're gonna do is I'm not gonna teach you how to make a tunic. You're gonna take the tunic that you love best for you, and you're gonna make it knee length, and we're gonna use that as the thing we decorate. So let me share the screen. And we'll start looking at some things. All right. Can you see that, Ashaxi?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yes, now I can see it.
Now you can see it. All right. So here we go. So this is an extant Coptic hoodie. It's child size. It has this cool little mohawk fringe up there. It's super cool. So the next picture shows the hoodie part a little bit closer. So it has all this cool fringe. I'm not going to do the fringe, but I think it would be super cool if you did. So that's an older one. And then that's the arm. Because I know some of you have questions about like what kind of hoodie is the best hoodie, and the best hoodie is the one that you want to make. So you have lots of options. Here's another extant hoodie. Again, a child size. So maybe I'll make that big so you guys can all see. All right, and that one has trim going up the back on the hood, and it looks to me like there's some fringe up front. So fun stuff. And then here's another one. Also has fringe and little flowers, probably a little girl's hoodie. I think there's a picture of the front of that one too. Let me see. Yeah. So actually that might be a different hoodie because the roundel at the bottom is different. But so you can see there's lots of examples of hoodies from period. And then these are not hoodies. What?
A question from the audience. What is the date on the tunic?
Oh, I didn't write any dates down. It's all ancient. Sorry, I can find the dates for you, but I didn't write them down. So I apologize. I will find it later and put it in the comments. So I just wanted to show some non-hoodies to show you all the different ways that you could decorate the tunic. Like here, there aren't any roundels. These are called clave, the long strips. And so this one just has clave on it. This one has a whole bunch of cool stuff. It has clave and rondelle and stuff around the bottom and up the top, on the sleeves. This is more like what I usually do. I like to make 6 roundels. Then I like to make clave that go down the front, across the chest, and then on the arms. And then there's a whole bunch in a museum, just so you get an idea. Lots of different things you can do. There's one that the clave go all the way down to the bottom of the tunic. Different color, super cool. Look at all those stripes, that's awesome.
Are these floor length?
I think that these ones are knee length, but so, and then you can find these on anywhere on the internet, like different things to show you measurements and stuff. And the measurements I usually use, actually, we'll talk about that in a minute, but you don't have to follow the measurements here. And then I just wanted to show you some, thank you, Penny, 600 AD is the kids one.
Okay.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I just wanted to show you some close-ups of some roundels or medallions and just show you how much variance there is and like how you can be really creative with it. So there's one, here's a clave, which is super cool. I mean, look at that, that's super cool. So more clave, roundel that's just two birds in a tree in a roundel, which we'll come back to because I've been using like a silk that looks period as my roundels, but you don't have to do that. I find it useful. Here's another one. Lots of color on that one. So you can see there's just a whole bunch. And then I wanted to just show you guys, this guy is the god of Roman clothing. His name is Graham Sumner. And if you, whoops, of course I moved it. The number 3 one has the hoodie in it. And it also has this super cool riding coat as well. So if you're really interested in learning like the historical part of the hoodie and the whole Roman outfit, I think you should go pick up this book because it is amazing and it'll give you all of the stuff that I'm not going to give you with the dates and stuff. So,
is that from the Man at Arms series? Yeah.
it is. So, and then that's a close-up of the picture in the book of the hoodie and the riding coat. The riding coats are super cool. All right, so that is all for now. Then we'll go back to those later. Okay, so I just wanted to show you like all the different things you could use. Like you could just buy trim, clave. That's actually, you know, black and white. Lots of them were black and white. So all kinds of trim that you could use. I cut up an obi for this, and then I restitched it together. So can you see that?
Yeah.
So, and then this used to be just like a striped piece of fabric that I decided that I just wanted the wave stripes from. And I cut all the wave stripes out and I made them into clave. And whenever I decide to make another Roman tunic with waves, I just have that. So it's cool. And then this is what I wanted to show you. Like you can buy silk like this, like old obis. One of the places that I find it is Shinei.net, and that's SHINEI .net, and it's in Japan. The obis aren't very expensive. You could get a whole obi of like this width, but probably 5 yards for $10, $12. The shipping is killer though. The shipping is astronomical. So what I would do with something like this is I would cut it into strips, and that would be my clave. And then I would cut out the individual roundels and use those as roundels. So I love this stuff. It's totally available. It's not expensive. And you can use it not only for Roman stuff, but for a whole bunch of different stuff. Like it also is appropriate for my Viking Age stuff. So, and then I just wanted to like, this is just Sartor fabric, and I could just go around the roundels and use this as a roundel too. And if I was going to use this for a hoodie, and it actually has pretty cool stuff on it, I would take the roundels I needed out of it, and then I would take the middle part here, and I would make that into my clave. So, and then I also wanted to show you that it doesn't have to be round. There were a lot of square ones there. There's diamond ones. If you don't want to do the round part, you can do a square. So, and another thing you can use, and I did this for one of my examples, is you can stamp them. So I stamped some wave ones. I just made a wave one that we'll see a picture of later. So I stamped these, and I was playing with with variated color and sort of a fade on these. So I'm going to save these for a different tunic, but these are going to be roundels for something later. So if you have some stamps, they work really well. Do you have a question?
Nope.
Okay. So I'm going to put these down. So I'm going to start with this one. This is for my daughter, purple and blue. And when I make a hoodie, like I showed you in the pictures, I bank on, I want 2 small roundels for the hood on either side. And then I want 6 big ones, 2 in front, 2 in the back, and 2 on the arms. So I will get 6. And I didn't have anything in the purple color that she wanted her tunic in, so I stamped it. It's just a horse stamp. It's in blue. It didn't come out as dark as I would have liked. So what I'm probably going to do with these afterwards is go in with a paintbrush and put in some black and some other colors and make it pop a little bit more. But anyway, so I did 6 of these. I already cut them up. But the trick with doing circles is a medium weight interlining. All right. So you want your roundel and your medium weight interlining, and you will have the urge to cut the circle out as a circle. Don't do it. When you stop, my dog is whining, I'm sorry. When you sew these together on the machine, it is so much easier to keep the fabric laying where you want it if you have a square and you have enough fabric around the circle so that it's not going up into your foot or snagging. So put that together. I guess I'll show you the other one too. So if you're going to make a hoodie, 2.5 to 3 yards of your main color linen, mine's purple. And then you need like a yard and a half of contrast color. And this is a tablecloth. The blue is a tablecloth that I cut up. But what I have been doing is just taking the scraps from my tunics and just keeping them and making them into the contrast color. And there's always enough. So I have a contrast color, and what I do to make sure that the circle is bigger than my main color is I'm kind of lame, but I just find something in my house that is bigger. And on this one, where did I do with those? Here, there. So this is my stamp that I used, and I just went and found a stamp that was bigger. And I traced around it. So I know that my contrast color is going to come out because the stamp's just a little bit bigger. So I traced around that 6 times so I would have a contrast color. So first step, cut them out, put them with medium weight interlining. And this one I just wanted to show you, like when you draw out for your contrast color, you can just stitch right on top of your drawing because you're going to put these right side to right side. But there's not a right side on your contrast color unless you have some sort of printed fabric. So it's important to know where your circle is. So that is kind of cool for that. With this, if I put it right side to right side, I can't really see where my circle is. I can, however, see it through the inner lining. So I usually draw around the circle if I can't see it through it. Like on this one, this is the other one we're going to look at. This is an OBI cut up. I can actually see the circle on the back. But even on this one, because there's all this loose thread, I'm probably going to take a marker and go around the circle. And if you do that, you're going to save yourself a lot of headaches trying to find your circle and not getting wonky circles. So, let's see. So second step, pin it together with your inner lining, draw your circle, and then stitch it together. So this one's all stitched together already. All I did was go on my machine and stitch around the circle. If you're like stitching around the circle, I can do it without stopping and changing my foot, but you can be as slow as you want, basically. So take as much time as you need. And if you're going to maneuver your fabric, just make sure your needle is down in your fabric before you maneuver it. So
and you want that circle to be as perfect as possible, because that's going to create the edge of your rondelle.
That is right. And while you can cover some mistakes with a little bit of handwork on the edge, the better you get the round, the better you'll be. So then the next thing is you cut off the edges, and you could come in and clip it so you have a better circle. I don't clip it, and this is why. If you get too close to the stitching around the circle, it's going to rip apart the inner lining from your roundel, and it's going to come out, and that's going to ruin the whole reason that you did the inner lining, was so that you wouldn't have anything to hem under. This is going to hem it under for you. So with this, so I just go around, I leave, I don't know, about 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch around. And then when I'm ready, I pull it apart like this. And I take my super sharp scissors and I cut like that. And then I'm just going to come back in. And I did it like that because I didn't want to cut my roundel accidentally. But I'm just going to come back in and go like that and split it up almost to the top, and then come back around, split it up almost to the top, and then I'm going to turn it inside out. And then as I'm turning it inside out, I press and pull. I press with my fingers inside on the seam, and then I'm pulling apart. So I get my circle untucked. And that actually works pretty well all by itself. And then I'll come back around and sort of work it so that I get as much of the white on the back as possible. Because the more, well, that worked pretty good. The more you get the white not to come up in the front, the less you have to like mask it later with pretty handwork or whatever. So that is what it looks like. And then I'm going to press it. Ta-da! Flat, ready to go. You have a clean edge. And then let's see, I was going to just show you, like, this is my tablecloth, and I just drew the contrasting colors. Normally, and I should have done this on this one because I had plenty of fabric, I would leave more of a gap. Can you see that? More of a gap there, because you want as much between your edge and as possible. Otherwise, you're going to get it to pull through. Like these ones, I'm going to have to sew really carefully not to get the edge to pull through. Because when I cut it, it'll be too close. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yep.
So after you press both, you can see that my circle isn't quite right there, but that's okay. I'm going to pin them together. And then I'm going to sew down the purple in purple on the blue. So let's see. I think I kept the arm out so you guys could see. So there. So there's the purple on the blue. I haven't stitched down the blue yet, but I will. And then I also have my clave down here, and we'll talk about that in a second. So that's what it's going to look like. And then I'll stitch it down. And for this one, I probably will go through and do a hand stitch just to even it up. And that will mask the fact that my circle isn't perfect. So, okay. So those are the roundels. Let's talk about the clave. So with the clave, I like to do a stripe on each arm, a stripe across the chest, and then 2 long ones that go front and back. The chest and arm ones usually can be the same length, and it's just whatever length you really like. I mean, you could take just your sleeve and just make sure that it's you could either go into your seam if you didn't want to finish the corners, or just you make it so that you have enough to do your seam allowance. So what I'll do is I'll find what I want to use as the clave. And this is a silk, like I showed you earlier. It's purple. And one of the edges is already finished, so I didn't have to do anything. And then with the other edge, I just tucked it under. The iron is really your friend with this. The better you press things, the less work you'll have to do later. So this, I think, is 2 inches wide. Yes. So this is 2 inches wide. So my contrasting band, I'm going to make twice as big, like 4 inches or 5 inches, depending on just what look I want. I think this one I did 5 because I wanted a nice big edge on both sides. And just like any other linen, you can just rip the linen. So what I usually do is I'll just measure 4 or 5 inches over. I'll cut the linen and then I'll just rip it. And you can see all of this is ripped. It's got ripped edge. And then I'll take it over and I'll press it. And I just do this by eye. I just press it in and I make sure that it stays the same size on each side. And so it would look just like that. Okay. So the length of the long ones usually are between 40 and 50 inches, but the biggest factor with the long clave is, I think, if you're going to wear a belt or not with your tunic. If you're going to wear a belt, we either want them to end before where the belt's going to be or come down way after the belt, because you're going to put the belt on, then you're going to blouse it. And if it's sort of tucked in, but not, it looks weird. And that's with the rondelles too. You want to make sure they're far enough down on your tunic that they're not going to get in your belt. That's important. So I like to finish the edges on the clave by just folding it over, pressing it, and then sort of making the beginning of a paper airplane. I think it gives it a really nice finished look. And then I can put them like this, and I know where I want the main color to sit. And then I just pin them together. And I sew all the purple to the blue before I ever get to the tunic. So you get to the point where all your roundels are sewn together, all your clave sewn together, and it's all very neat.
Do you hand sew them or do you machine sew them?
Onto the tunic?
To themselves.
It's all machine done.
Okay.
So I'll use like a light purple to match, and then I'll use a blue to match. Let's see, let's look at the hood, because on the hood, it just disappears into itself. So you can't even see the purple or the blue. And if I was going to use this as a fighting tunic, I might not put any decorative stitch around it, but because this is for my daughter, I probably will. I'll probably put a purple blanket stitch around that and then a blue around that. It's not easy to blanket stitch the silk. because the needle doesn't want to go through, but the linen's a dream. So yeah, so I just, everything is machine sewn down. That's why, one of the reasons why I think this is super easy. So let's see.
And then you can choose to put hand stitching around it or just leave it as is.
Yes. And so you can see, let's look at this one. On this one, I decided to hand stitch around. And you can't even tell that the circles aren't, well, this one's an oval, but you can't even tell they're not perfect anymore. And you really can't tell when I'm wearing it. And then if you look at the Clave, I didn't do anything but machine sew it down. And you can't even really see
the machine sewing.
No. So, okay. So this is the body of my daughter's tunic. And I'm going to lay it out, assuming that I was done with all of this stuff, but I'm half done. So I'm going to show you what I would do. So I would take the long one. This one, I've already stitched the purple to the blue. I'd fold it in half. And I'd bring the half up to there. So I know that it's going to sit like that. And then the other one would go here. She has really small shoulders. So the thing that I need to be aware of with this is when I cut the neck, I need to leave enough fabric here in order to sew the hood on. And it's going to be a very, very small amount of fabric. The hood is almost going to touch up to the Clave. I think this one you can see that. So, you see that? It's just super close.
Okay.
I have a little bit of problem of getting claustrophobic. So I like the neck a little bit bigger. And you can see, well, I'm actually going to sew the hood together for you, Dawn. But anyway, so.
Because I can't figure out the hood part. That's why.
Go ahead.
Somebody's asking how many hoodies you've made.
I don't know, but I have pictures, so we look through them. It's got to be at least a dozen now. So I like to make the chest Clave piece big enough so that, well, that's upside down, big enough so that it sits underneath the long ones. And when I put it together and I sew the blue part down, I'm going to actually pin through the long one and the short one together. And then I get a really nice edge and I make sure it doesn't move on me.
That makes sense.
So if I had this whole thing done, which I don't, I would put the other one down. I'd make sure there was enough room for the neck hole and I left my edges. And then I would start pinning this and this and this. And then I would just go around. And usually what I do, because I want to make sure, let's talk about placement of the chest too. I'm sorry.
You don't want it like right across the nips.
Right.
You want it up?
I want it to sit here. I usually go about 5 inches down from the top of the tunic, which leaves me enough for my neck hole and then for it to sit right underneath. And then just go ahead.
Someone's asking if you could do a slip down the front because she doesn't like close necklines.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can see, let's just pull this one down. Whoops. Oh, I broke the thing. This is my husband's, so it's a little bit bigger, but you can see how big I made that neck. Still very close there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a huge neck. Like this one, I don't have any problem being claustrophobic. And with this one too, like I didn't do anything special to the hood. I'll show you what I do to some of them that are for me, that fit snugger. So anyway, and you can see I pulled him right down to there. He doesn't have to worry about nipples. And then on the back, I make it the mirror image. So it's going to be the same spot on the back.
Would you say that the edge of the hoodie is about a finger width from the edge of the clave, or does it vary on how wide your neck is and how wide your shoulders are?
It really varies on how wide your neck is and how wide your shoulders are. So this one, there's almost none at all. Can you see that?
Yeah. It's right on the edge of the...
It's right on the edge because I wanted, this one I wear a lot, and I wanted to make sure that the neck hole was big enough that it wouldn't sit here on me. Mm-hmm. I hate that. This is the hoodie, when we get to that part, is the only hand sewing you're gonna do. I think this one has actually the smallest neck hole, but it's still right on the edge.
Okay. So, and it probably depends how wide your clave are too. I mean, if you make them almost as wide as your measurement from your neck to your shoulder seam, then you're going to have issues. So you need to balance the distance here with the width of your...
And on women, I think it looks better when you have the clave narrow and as close to the neck hole as possible. Because if you don't, they're going to sit on either side of your boobs and it's going to look funny. So that's why I make sure the clave are as close to the neck as possible. And I guess it probably, before I sew it together, it probably is about a finger width, maybe a little bit bigger. But yeah, so. So anyway, so you put that together. I usually, before I sew down the clave, I sew down the rondelles just because they're easier. The clave is super long and you have to go all the way around.
Do you assemble your whole tunic before you put your embellishments down, or do you put the embellishments on the body piece of the tunic and the arm piece of the tunic and then assemble the arms and the body?
Yes. So you can see on my daughter's tunic here, I haven't put the gores in. There are gores. I put them down here so I wouldn't lose them. Yes, I'm going to embellish the whole tunic first before I put it together. I'm going to put the arms together like this. I would sew together if, you know, I thought you guys needed to watch me sew it. But I don't think you do. So I have all of the embellishments already on. And so when you do that, just make sure you think about hemming and seam allowance. You want it far enough down off the shoulder and far enough up off the wrist so that you aren't coming like real close to it. But I wanted to talk about sewing down the clave. I like to start at the bottom on the corners because then it doesn't move for me. And I'll start at the corner and I'll come up and then I'll pull, and usually I'll have it pinned, but I probably don't use as many pins as most people. But if you pull it, you can actually look and just sort of keep it where you want it, especially on the short ones. And then I come back and go around and back down.
But if you're a messy sewer, you should probably just pin the shit out of it.
Yeah, if you're a messy sewer, pin the shit out of it. On these ones, what I'll do, because I want to make sure it sits right, let me see. Oh, also, if you're going to use something that has a top and a bottom, this has a top and a bottom, I'll measure it out and then I'll cut it in the middle, flip it around so that both sides are the right way. Okay. I think it really makes a difference when you're doing it. Don't, you know, you get caught and you're like, oh crap, one of them's upside down. And then you can also, you know, make sure you're right in the middle. So anyway, so when I'm sewing this, again, I'll start at the bottom and I'll come up, and I'll usually come up to here and then come over, up, over, and then back down and come back up so that this is exactly where it's supposed to be and it does not move while I'm doing all of the sewing on the long strip, because as you can imagine, pins like to fall out as you're sewing. So I want to make sure everything stays where I want it to. So I'm going to do the middle one and half of this one, and then do the rest of this one, and then come over to this one.
Mari says she likes to baste them down first to prevent the base fabric from bunching underneath when she's sewing.
Yeah, I that's probably, Mari is a much better user of tools than I am for sewing. I honestly don't have a lot of problem with the base fabric moving. So basting probably, if you want it super, super neat, that's probably a great idea. So, and before I sewed this on, I would do the neck hole so that I knew where it was and I wasn't getting into it.
Do you finish the neck hole, or does attaching the hoodie finish the neck hole for you? How does that work?
Attaching the hoodie halfway finishes the neck hole for you. So let me, all right.
Sorry, am I messing up your order?
No, not at all. Does anyone have questions on the clave or the roundels?
We'll have to wait a few seconds.
Okay, well, if somebody does, Mari says pens lie. Yes, they do. Let's talk about the hoodie for a second. So I made the small ones, and I just went ahead and put this one on. What I like to do is, before I hem it or even put it together, yeah, so there's my lining. Okay, so let's talk about how big you want to make the hoodie first. This one's for my husband, and my husband is like allergic to the sun. So I always make his hoodies ginormous. So this one I think is 20 up. Yeah, well, it's 20 up. And I think it's, I want to say 18, 22 to, it's 15 wide. So that's pretty standard. My daughter's is a little bit smaller. Let's see, you can see. Not that much smaller. Okay. And then what I like to do is, just like with the tunic, I like to put the roundels on first. And let's see. So this one's not done yet. I'm going to have the ripped edge be my front. And I'm just going to try to see where I like it. And as you guys saw with the extant hoodies, you can do a lot. Like, I could leave the front unhemmed and it would be fine because they all have fringe on them. So you could decide that you wanted to do some sort of mohawk on the top, whatever. This one's just going to be plain. It's just going to have the roundels on it. Usually how I place them is I go 5 inches in and 5 or 6 inches down. And then I'll just pin it. And then you can go back to the other one, and you don't even have to measure again. You just place it on top of the other one. Or you can measure, whatever. And then again, I just went around in blue, and this one's already sewn on. So that's ready to go. All right. The hood is just a rectangle folded in half. Okay. I like to steam the fuck out of it so I get a nice ridge line where I want it. And I do that both on the lining and the main part, so that when I put them together, I have that as a marker. All right. So how you make the hood: turn it right side to right side. I know the ripped side is my front, and I'm just going to sew up the back. So I'm going to do that because I promised Ashaxi I would actually show her the whole thing. So just give me a sec.
Do you measure on the body, or do you just use a standard kind of 22 by 18-ish?
I actually measured both Lily and Dave today. I sort of do this measurement and then this measurement.
Okay. And then do you add to those measurements, or you just kind of play with how blousey you want it to be around the front?
Yeah, I play with how blousey I want it to be. I usually put in about 4 inches. That gives me the seam, and then it gives you play. I don't like a super tight hood. Mm-hmm. So about, okay. I would add about 4 inches to your measurement. So let me sew this together. All right. I don't usually sew standing up, so let's see.
I was going to say, do you sew standing up all the time? That's kind of brilliant.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Just give me a sec.
Okay.
All right, so again, I'm a bad seamstress. I did not pin it, but I just sewed up the back. So you see, you have a hood. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna clip this top part, that, and then I'm gonna come over to the ironing board.
And for those of you that don't know, clipping that corner, when you turn it right side out, it gets rid of the excess fabric, and it allows it to get a more exact point on it. How big is the finished neckline in total?
What?
How big is the finished neckline in total? Mari's asking.
It depends on how big the neck is.
Big enough to put your head through?
Yes. So yeah. So anyway, you can see I just steamed it open. I think you can never steam enough. So I'm actually going to steam the other side too, so I get a really nice seam. And then sometimes I'll even come back again and steam it down. And then for those of you guys, she already told you why I clipped the thing, but then you just come in, and I'm doing this just to show you, but you come in with your scissors and you can just right out there. So I've got a nice sharp point. So, okay. Do the same thing with the lining. Of course, there's not a right side yet, so I can just sew up the back using my steamed in pleat at the top. Okay.
And you don't serge the edges or anything. You're not worrying about it because it's all going to be inside the garment, right?
Exactly. Exactly. On the tunic part, I do finish the edges in because that's not lined, but the hood is all lined, so you don't have to worry about it at all. Then I'm going to press it again.
And Jenny's saying, if you want to, can you curve that edge rather than have a point? Is it a personal preference?
Absolutely. If you look at the extant ones, they are curved. Or at least 2 of them are. One of them's a point and 2 of them are curved. So
it's like to look like gnomes.
Yeah. So I'm just going to leave this one inside out because I'm going to go right side to right side on these. So I guess I'm not going to leave. Oh yeah, I am. So I'm going to go like that. Go like that. So right side to right side. And make sure that my pressed points are together. And I'll just sew up the front. And what I normally do, because I'm not a pinner, but if you pin, is I'll start right above where I want it to, the centers to be together, so that I make sure I go over the center and the center doesn't move on me. And I'll go all the way to the end of one side, and then I'll come back and do the other side, so that the important parts stay together. Okay, so I'm not going to sew that one together, because you can see on this one, this one was a tablecloth. You can see that it still has the cute little stitching. So you sew them together. Let me just pull it out. And you get this long front seam. All right. I steam it open all the way around. Then I take it back and I steam it again, open on right side to right side. And then I stick it in to the hood. And at this point, I will take a pin and I will pin the corners of the hood together. And then I will come around and I'll iron the fuck out of that so I get a really, really great edge. All right. And you have a hood. So some of you are asking, like, does this fit into the neck hole? Yes, it usually does. But one of the things I like to do, let's see. This one. Nope, not that one. This one, I guess.
Did you break another hanger?
No, I didn't break it. So you can see on this hood.
Somebody wants to know, do you have a source for tablecloths, or is that an antique store find? Or is it just one of mom's old tablecloths?
I honestly don't know where that tablecloth came from. I just have no idea. But the cool thing is like, really, like all of this green, this is from my fight pants. Like all the leftover green from my fight pants just became the contrast color. And you don't even have to do a contrast color. I just think it really makes it pop and it looks super cool. But anyway, back and on this one, you can see that I totally finished all the seams. Totally not correct for Roman, because it would have, their tunic would have been woven in that triangle with the things. But I like the contrast, so I do it. For the ones I make for fighting, I don't do that. I just whip stitch it closed. But I always finish the seams inside. You should always finish the seams inside. And then I just also hand finish the hem and the cuffs. But anyway, back to this. So this was a square. All right. It went out to here. And I decided that I wanted to be able to flip it back so that I could get a contrast. You can do this on the square ones. It just doesn't look as cool. And I wanted more neck room at the front. So you can see that if I hadn't done that, it would have come almost all the way. Can you see that? Almost all the way.
Okay.
So
and I'm noticing on some of my mundane hoodies that sometimes the fabric overlaps.
Yeah.
And
I don't like that personally. It makes me feel choked.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could overlap it. In fact, I think maybe that's what I was going to do on this one. But then I tried it on and I can't handle it. It makes me feel like I don't have any air. So I love doing this and it's super easy. All you have to do is turn it back inside out. Or you could cut it this way, but if I cut it this way, if I cut it inside out, I don't have to turn it. No, I should take the pen out. I don't have to turn it to sew it again, to sew the seam. So make sure it all matches up, looks good. And I'm going to take it onto my grid here. And I'm going to say, I want 3 and 3. And I'll go up 1, 2, 3. Well, let's go up 4. 4, and then I'll come over 3, and I just make a curve like that. Can you see that on the?
Okay, so you're cutting the base out so that you have that extra flap to fold back the hood.
Yeah, so I have an extra flap to fold back. It's going to give me more space here. Like you see on this hoodie that totally comes together.
Right.
The only reason that works for me is because it's not, because it's low. So yeah, that will give you more space here. And most people like more space here, especially if it's for fighting. You want to give a little bit more space there. And then all you do is you come up and you sew that, and then you cut it out, and you press again. And you clip the corner, use the scissors to make sure you get a good point, and you have a hoodie. So when I go to sew the hoodie to the tunic, I probably should have set that one up better. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my back seam and I'm going to line it up with what I would have done is I would have pressed the body of the tunic in half closed so that I have a nice crease up the back. And I'm going to match up the back seam of the hoodie to the back crease. Okay. And I'm going to machine sew again. So I actually do pin this because you don't want your hood to move. So I would pin the hood to the neck hole, and I would start over here and I'd come all the way around, and then I would go all the way around the other way. And for this one, you do want to clip. You want to clip all of the edge so that you get good movement and flexibility. Okay. So I think most of you guys probably know how to do that, but you just clip, make sure you don't clip all the way down to the seam or else it's going to rip apart. So you clip just in, and it'll give you all this flexibility that it wouldn't, which is super important because the neck hole is going to be round, and if you don't clip it, it won't sit right. Okay. So
you just sew the outside.
Yes. So I'm just going to sew the outside. And then after the outside sewn in, let's see, I'm going to come back and I'm going to sew by hand the lining.
Hi, Lily.
And what I do is I will take the lining, and usually the lining's a little long now, and I will flip it up and press it. And then I will take the pressed part and I will go as close to the machine seam as I possibly can. And then I will hand sew it down. Okay. So you can see the corners just tuck right in. Can you see that? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I go all the way around, and you can't really tell on the outside. No, I went through there, but not really.
Okay, so you try not to go through both layers.
Yeah, you try. That's why I go as close to the seam as possible, so that I can actually go into the salvage, right? The seam allowance. Yeah. I can go into the seam allowance instead of the tunic, and I can make the seam invisible.
Okay. And then do you go in and hand finish the rest of the neck that's open as well?
Yes.
At the same time?
So yeah, sorry about that. So after you put that in, it's naturally going to want to flip. All right. So this is all I had to do for hand finishing of the seam. I just flipped it and finished it. This one is a little larger. So whoops. That sucked. So this one, you see the same thing. Just very, see, I got to fix this one. It ripped out a little bit, but you can see,
I just turned it over. The camera a little closer.
What?
Can you hold it up to the camera a little closer? There we go.
Right. So this one ripped out a little bit. It's just a very small seam. I just flip it over twice. And then I'm sort of careful on the corners. I want to make sure I get a good line there. So and with hand sewing, you can just, manipulate it pretty good. And then you get this nice finish. So, and you don't have to use linen for contrast. This one, I wanted it to be teal and an apple green. And the only apple green fabric I had, or I guess this isn't even apple, it's like an artichoke, was silk. Just make sure you pre-wash everything so that it doesn't shrink on you and ruin your tunic later. But same thing, right? So, and this is another one that flips back. I just really like the flip. I think it gives it some panache.
And it's a place where you can put your little pilgrim's badges and stuff if you want to.
Yeah, this one actually I think has one of, yeah, so I have a cool little Roman cicada pin and I just hold it open with the pin.
Very cool.
And you can see
tack it, you could just hand tack it, tack it down if you wanted to.
Yeah, you could, but it's more versatile if you don't.
Right. You could get more sunshade by leaving it all forward.
And then you can see here where I would come back and I would just do a blanket stitch. And I do the contrasting color. I do the turquoise on the purple and the purple on the turquoise. And it sort of masks any unroundness of the circle. I do not do it on the clave. The clave do not get any handwork, and they look fine.
Okay.
Okay. And this one, same thing, hand done. If you wanted to, if you really aren't a hand sewer, you could just probably serge your main seams. I see no problem with that, or however you want to do it. I'm used to hand doing seams, so it's not a big deal.
Serge or French seam.
Yeah. So do I have any other questions?
Somebody says so like a French hood. I don't know what a French hood.
A French seam. French seam?
Oh, no, when you were doing the folded back hood, she asked if it was like a French hood.
Sure. I actually think I know what she's talking about. Yes, I think it is.
Okay.
So I am going to clip this one when I finish it and give her the little thing because my daughter also is sensitive. So, but let me share a screen real quick and I can show you some of the hoodies I've made and you can see all of the different stuff. So
someone's asking how to do the fringe mohawk thing in the hood.
I've never done it, but I think it would be super cool. You know who has done it is Izzy. Izzy made one of our Mini's kids a mohawk one. So anyway, this is the one I did for my husband for his knighting. It was before I decided to use the silk, and it's just trim, and then I hand embroidered the roundels. So, and then here's the orange one that you saw. The gold one, and the hood is flipped. That one, the hood is flipped, and I didn't even cut out. That's just a square, but you can still flip it. There's the green one. There's the one I made for Gabe, and I didn't cut out Gabe's either, but the neck is big enough that I don't think it matters. Blue one. So you can see here, you can kind of see a little bit of the inner lining. That all disappears when you do something like
on a big rondelle.
Yeah, a stitch over it. And if you're more of a perfectionist than I am, just make sure that when you press it that you don't get any of that.
And then go back to that last one, the last picture. You can also see the neckline, like how you cut the neckline out.
Yeah. So you see the neckline up there. It's just really thin. It looks lopsided here, but I just don't think the tunic is laying flat. One side is higher than the other, but you can see it really is about a finger width.
Right.
So there's a red one, same thing. Here's one I embroidered the whole thing. But just like all of these other ones, I did the embroidery and I did the contrast and I sewed them on. I didn't do anything on the tunic itself. They're all patches. So, you know, if the tunic gets messed up, I can take all the patches off and put it on a new one.
And that's for his knighting tunic, right?
Yeah, that's his knighting tunic.
That's special.
So that's just a close up of some of that.
Somebody wants to know where you buy your trims.
Oh, so so this one here is a good one. This was an OB, and it's the same one that I used earlier. And it had a whole bunch of these chariots, which I thought were super cool. Oh, I guess you can't see because I'm sharing the screen. Anyway, most of them are OBs. And like I said, one of the best places to get those OBs is Shinei, SHINEI.net. They're in Japan.
Jenny put up a good link for that.
Okay. It's in Japan. The shipping is horrendously expensive, but the silk itself, when you get it on sale, and they do sales all the time, can be $12 for a whole long OB that you could get probably 3 or 4 hoodies out of, or trim for a Viking or something for a Byzantine or whatever. Have I used hand woven trim? Yes, the knighting tunic that I did for my husband, that's hand woven trim. That's card woven trim. And how wide should the clave be? If you had seen the pictures at the beginning, and we can go back to some of those, it's whatever you want to do, basically. So that's the most recent one I did with the stamping. But let's go back to the beginning. So here are some extant tunics that you can see. There's really wide ones, super narrow ones. It's really your preference. Whoops, there we go.
And what supplies you have on hand. You know, if you've got something that you want to use it.
Yeah, like this purple and turquoise one that I forget I'm sharing screen. But I'll stop. The purple and turquoise one I did, I just really liked the colors together. So I just made the silk work, and this is a Sartor silk. I don't think I actually bought it from Sartor. I think I bought a Chinese knockoff off of Alibaba or AliExpress or whatever. That's another super secret, is that AliExpress, I think it's like the YXZ or YQZ fabric store on AliExpress, has some of the Sartor patterns for like $25 a yard instead of $60 a yard.
But Sartor doesn't, you know.
Yeah, it probably
from Sartor because
copyright infringement on them. But anyway, so I just made that work. Like you can see the clave. I just went down the center and just made it into clave, just because I liked the colors. So was there another question?
Do you know if there are extant examples of stamped embellishments, or are they all woven?
I think they're all woven.
All of the ones I've seen are woven.
Yeah, and I'm not a weaver. That's never going to be something that I'm going to do. That's why I call this an SCA cool hoodie and not, you know, a period hoodie, because I'm not going to weave the fabric and the clave and the roundels into it. But even on some of the period ones, they would take some of the roundels and the clave and reuse them. So there is examples of appliquing down.
Someone wants to know how expensive is the shipping for the OBs?
Oh, it's pretty expensive. if I'm going to buy silk from there, I buy a lot and I make the shipping worth my while. But I have a lot, like a lot, and a lot of different colors. I probably have 3.5 huge bins full of silk because it's so inexpensive.
I'm gonna come raid your fabric.
Yeah, and I think the shipping might even be flat rate. Like, so if you buy one, you're going to pay the same thing as if you buy 10. So why wouldn't you buy 10?
About $40 to $50 per 2 kilograms.
Yeah, it's pretty expensive.
And there are, you can get, somebody says there's a gal in Paulsbo that sells Obies cheap, and there used to be a store on the coast in Waldport that had Obies pretty expensive too. I don't know if it's still there or not.
Yeah, but buying the Obies is so more cost effective than buying through Sartor or through historical, that I can't remember what they're called, like the history fabric site or whatever. You know, $72 a yard is a lot. That's a lot. Yeah. So if I'm going to pay shipping, because I'm going to have to pay shipping for Sartor or the history store too, because they're all Western Europe, right? I might as well get a whole bunch more from Japan.
Do you have to alter the hood at all for different types of necklines, or is the hood pretty versatile?
The hood is pretty versatile. Because my husband likes such a big hood, like what he likes to do is like actually pull it over his eyes. I have to sort of play around with the neck hole sometimes because it's so big. But that was one of the reasons I came up with the scalloped thing too. It's like, oh, well, I can fix that. I don't have to attach the whole thing. So.
And then somebody is asking if you could bead them if you wanted to.
Bead them?
Bead like pearl.
Oh, I'm sure you could bead them. One of the things I really like about these hoodies is there's hardly any hand sewing, and they look really cool. So I kind of like that because so much of what we do is so hand sewing and hand embellishment heavy that it's kind of nice to have a palette cleanser where you hardly have to do any hand sewing at all, and it comes out and looks super cool.
A lot of impact for
yeah, that's, I mean, you could do all of it hand sewn. You don't have to use my stabilizer trick. You know, you could hand sew all of it, but it won't be as easy. It won't be as fast. And for me, it wouldn't be as fun. But yeah, the silk store, I'm happy to send you guys some links. For those of you guys in my kingdom, like whenever we can meet up next, I'm happy to bring some and just, you know, give you some because I have more than I'm ever going to use. So I know you have first dibs at Shaxi.
Get out of my head.
You know, the cool thing about Shanae too, the Shanae website, and I'm giving them all this free stuff, is they actually have like small rolls of fabric. The name, Dawn?
I don't know.
Like they have whole rolls of fabric for super cheap too. Like I bought a diamond twill silk, a black diamond twill silk for like $10, and there must be 20 to 30 yards on that roll. I already sent a whole bunch to my to Inga. So yeah. Bolts. Thank you, bolts. That is what I was looking for. So just like a trick for when you go on those websites, and there's another one too, and I'm just not remembering the name of it right now, but I'll put it in the comments later. I think Shanae is better than the other one. They just have a bigger volume. You'll have to do a search because they have a billion things. And when you do the search for your silk, you want to put in animal or paired animal or peacock, or don't do lion, because if you do lion, you'll get anything orange or red. But if you put in paired animals or animal or diamond or like whatever you're looking for, basically, it'll come up. Usually the searches I do are animal. And you get a whole bunch of stuff that's not relevant, but you get a lot of the really cool roundel silk that comes up.
Awesome.
And you can sort it in price too, because I say they're cheap, but the cheap ones are cheap. So the expensive ones are expensive. So
are there any other questions?
Yeah, any other questions?
And did we miss any that didn't get answered?
I don't know.
I tried to go through everything. I think we asked everything, but ask again if your question hasn't been answered, please.
Yeah, ask again. I know I went through it pretty fast, and I didn't want to sew while I was up here. So you know, if you have any questions, just let me know. It is super easy though. Attaching the hood is super easy. If you guys ever finish a neck hole, it's the same thing. I mean, it's always tricky around the edges where the curve is. Just make sure you clip it. And don't clip the circles.
Who is the author of the Man-at-Arms book? Somebody was asking.
Graham, Graham, Sumner, Sumner. And it's the one that has the hoodie in it, and the really cool writing code is Roman Military Clothing Volume 3. There's 3 volumes, and they go in order of timeline. The first one is the earliest, and then it goes later. The body shaping, the pattern for the body. The pattern for the body is your favorite tunic, knee length, or a little bit more than knee length. Like I said at the beginning, the Roman hoodies from back in the day are basically a bag with arms, and nobody looks good in that. And if we're going to spend time making clothing, I want to feel attractive. So it's your favorite tunic pattern, knee length or a little bit more than knee length. How much ease do you usually include in your patterning?
Do you mean ease? Do you mean seam allowance?
I think maybe she means, like, I don't know what she means exactly. Do you mean seam allowance, or do you mean like so that it's not skin tight? I'm not sure.
Kith just posted a link to the book, so thanks, Kith.
Yeah. The book is really good. I think he has another book. I can't remember the name. But if you start at the Man-at-Arms series, that'll lead you in good directions. The Man-at-Arms series also has the site to the shorts, the Roman shorts that I like to make to go with the hoodie. So
she says she means by ease, excess room in the body.
Yeah, well, so my sister is my patterning goddess. So I like it to fit here, and then I don't care about the rest, because for me, as long as the line here looks good, I'm gonna look good. So I really think it depends on your body. I'm not a patterning guru. I just think it's important to have the shoulder seam at the shoulder and not down the arm, and that the girls look good, and then everything drops from the girls.
And then everything kind of flows over the hips.
Do I recommend wearing pants? I recommend shorts. I think the coolest thing about this hoodie is that shorts are appropriate, and it's the best summer thing because you have built-in shade and you get to wear shorts. So yeah, you can wear pants with it. The one I made for my husband for his knighting, I made pants, and I think no, I made shorts for Alexandros, but I made Dave pants, and they have these cool pants in that Man-at-Arms book with silk on the bottom. They're super cool. I made him those. I have lots of silk links. I think I actually might do one of these episodes on just shopping on the internet, because I seem to like to do that. And my husband is very forgiving. I guess not even forgiving. I make the money, so he doesn't care. So.
What type of belt do you wear?
What type of belt do you wear? Well, my husband wears his Roman belt, but what is it called? The Calingulum. The Calingulum. I just wear my knight's belt. I usually wear a card woven belt when I wear the hoodie. Or you could wear, any sort of Roman appropriate belt. So Yeah.
Or just wear it like a big muumuu.
Yeah, and like I said at the beginning, you know, you don't have to get fancy and make your own clave from silk. You can use trim, store-bought trim, card woven trim, whatever you want to do. Like I just cut up striped fabric that I liked one of the stripes in. Mari says a sash is appropriate, so wear a sash with it. Mari knows. So I think this is probably as easy or as hard as you want to be. On this one, I couldn't get this. The silk it frays quite a bit, even when I went over it in a really small zigzag. So this one I'm actually going to hand embellish around the silk, and that's why this one is still in the do me pile. So.
Because it wants more work than you want to give
it wants more work than I want to give it. So, all right. Well, thanks everyone for joining me. If you have any questions, just let me know, or, you know, send us a message at the Sisters Network, or you can send me a message privately. And we're happy to answer your questions. And I will put a shopping episode together because, yeah, I know all the silk tricks. So anyway, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you, and see you guys on Wednesday, hopefully. Bye-bye.